Hey everybody, today I got a RC boat to review. This is the Racent Claymore. It is a little bitty speedboat, as you can see here on the table. Racent's actually made by Volantex. I don't know if it says it here on the outside of the box. Here it says right here, Volantex RC. Just a little bitty speedboat. The model number is the V795-2. Let's go ahead and look at it. It comes with a little stand here, so you can store it on a stand. It's a little bitty brush speedboat. Pretty fast little guy. It does have self-riding and it does work, especially on freshwater. Now in my pool, it doesn't seem to work quite as well because I think the salt water's extra buoyancy causes that. But anyway, these vents here on the side will fill with water, so if it flips over, it will fill up with water and it expels it out the back here, so it doesn't sink on you, and then that causes it to flip and go upright. Same concept as the WL Toys WL915 that I own. It's got the little rudder here and propeller in the back. Let's go ahead and open up the inside and the shell and show you the inside. Comes with a little 7.4 volts, 360 milliamp hour, 15C lithium ion battery. And this does use a kind of bizarre connector on it, as you can see here. It's not a real common one, so you can't use any hobby grade charger unless you somehow have that weird connector. But it gets a decent drive time. It's not terribly long, maybe 5 minutes or so. And it's not a LiPo, it's a lithium ion. I don't know why it says LiPo, but you can see these are hard cells here. So anyway, the charger that comes with it is a USB charger with that funky connector on it. And it takes a couple hours to charge this up using that charger. It also comes with a little Allen wrench here and a little one little spare propeller for the back. And that's all that comes in the package in terms of extra parts. This is your mini receiver and your electronic speed controller. It does have a water cooling that comes into the bottom here. This little hole. It comes around and it goes here, that cools the motor and it expels out the back. It does not go through the ESC, but for this little boat it seems to not be a problem with that. You do have to be mindful. My hose was popped off and laying out the back here, so I was a little confused at first. So make sure that your hose is attached and pushed down snug so that it doesn't come off, because your steering servo is right here on the side and it could bump this hose and knock it off. But since I secured it really good, I've had no issues with that. So just something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and look at the controller. The controller it comes with is really nice little controller. Got a foam grip on it. It's got a throttle and steering reverser and a bind button if you need to rebind it. It takes 4 AA batteries. It's got a steering max and minimum. Basically, it's kind of like a large or small rudder is what I'm really trying to say. How much do you want to have, a large turn radius or a smaller turn radius? Because this thing will really spin around in circles, as you'll see in the driver view of the boat. Just really nice looking controller. I like this controller a lot. Very comfortable. On and off switches here in the back. You can set a fail-safe with this. It's kind of odd when you power it up. If you want to hold the throttle in a little bit, let's say, and power it up, that tells it that if it loses signal with the controller, to continue on at that amount of throttle. So like if it lost signal, you wanted to continue to drive on to the other side of the shore of a lake, you could do that. You can also do it with the steering. So if you wanted it to steer a little bit, you could turn on with the steering wheel slightly turned, and if it loses signal, it would start to spin basically in circles probably. So I don't think you'd want to do that, but you might want to do it with the throttle setting. But most people would probably just want their boat just to sit still and go and recover it with a big boat. So I think we've covered everything. There's not much to this little guy, but he's a pretty fun little boat. And as you see in the driver view, I do capsize it and it does very quickly self-right and take right off again. We do take the Autel X-Star drone up to get some footage of it on the lake, and we'll also have that in the review. So we'll go ahead and we'll move along now to the driver view. Hey everybody, I got the Volantex Racent Claymore boat all bound up here. and ready to go. I did do a short test run here on the freshwater lake here. You can see we're in front of. So I don't have a full battery. Now I don't know when this gets a low voltage, I'm sure it'll go to a reduced speed, but the way this tends to take on water, that does concern me a little bit. So this is not going to be a very long test drive, but it will be long enough to show you what this little guy can do. So I'm going to go ahead and toss him in here, and we'll go ahead and get him out in there on the water. So you want to keep it moving at full throttle. You let up a little bit, I think you may take on a little bit too much water. Also, it turns really well, but if you spin in too many circles, you could, it also tends to want to take on water. Oh, there it capsized and it did work. That's of course full speed. We can let off the throttle a little bit more, but you may take on more water. It does have some fail-safes they built into it, where you can, when you bind it up, you can hold like the throttle in a little bit as you power up the controller, and that will tell the boat if it loses signal to continue throttle at that point. You can also do it with the steering. Like you could tell, let's say, you could hold the controller a little bit as you power it up, and if it loses signal, it will turn the rudder to turn that much to turn the boat around. I just don't know how useful that fail-safe is going to be, because I think most people would like a boat just to stop if you lose signal, unless you know you can have it continue on to the other side of the shore. You can tell set a throttle fail-safe. It explains that in the instruction manual if you choose to buy this boat, because it's a very inexpensive boat. It is not expensive at all. There'll be a purchase link in the video description to it. I've not got a run time on this, you know, I've stopped it ahead of time, but it seems to have a pretty good run time. But I'm going to take it here for a few minutes. Looks to me like the battery is starting to get low, so I think that's enough to show you what it can do. I'm going to bring it back. That's its reduced speed. So this little boat actually works really well. Like I said, in the table review, I was going by the information I had in my pool. And like I did say, it might work better in freshwater, and it did self-ride. So it does work well at self-riding, which is the big. Overall, then this boat's a win. I don't have any problems with it then. So that's really cool. So stay tuned for more videos, and be sure to subscribe, and have a good day.
The power of the dark side.